guys, it's Reagan and welcome back to another video. Today's video I am absolutely thrilled for as it marks the beginning, at least for me anyway, of my favorite season. This video is made with both love and delusion. That's right, today's video I'm going to be chatting about all the books I hope to read this fall. I am definitely a bit of a mood reader, and a lot of my moods correlate completely with the season, the time of year, depending on the weather and just the vibe of outside. I really like to try to match my books to that. Fall is by far and away one of my favorite times of year to read. Just the ambiance, the holidays, everything about it just makes it so much fun. And I have quite the large selection of spooky, atmospheric, dark reads I have been holding on to just for this time of year. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. The first book that is on my fall TBR is All of Us Villains by Amanda Foody and Christine Lynn Herman. The synopsis of this appears to be very cutthroat, and I love any type of magical tournament or competition, and this has that in spades. Set in a remote community called Ivernath, and every blood moon, 7 families compete in a competition, with the winner being able to have complete control over a well of very powerful magic. This competition has been going on for generations, but the air surrounding the upcoming competition and blood moon has changed because a salacious tell-all book has been released, has exposed this bloody tradition to the world. So now bystanders, reporters, just curious individuals has flooded this one small community to watch the 7 champions now fight to the death for control over this magical wellspring. Book's release not only provided a brand new spotlight on the competition itself, but it also released vital information about the families, strategies, and other tactics that have been used in years past, kind of leveling out the playing field in a way that hasn't been seen in many years. I've honestly heard fantastic things about this. I'm hoping it's dark and gruesome, full of backstabbing. I also really love this concept of what happens when a secret society or secret tradition becomes known by everyone, and not just that everyone becomes obsessed with it. Next up is a newer release I've grabbed that I immediately knew I was going to try to read this fall, and that is Ordinary Monsters by J.M. Moreau. This is a work of historical fantasy, which is truly the combination of my favorite genres. Specifically, this is set in 1882 and starts off in Victorian England. We follow 2 young boys who have mysterious powers who are also being hunted by a mysterious figure made of smoke. One of the boys has no scars on his body because he can heal himself, and the other shines a strange bluish light which allows him to either mend or melt flesh. And the last main character we're introduced to is a jaded female detective hired to escort these boys to safety. And the location and the destination of this safety is very much unknown. It says, "So begins a journey into the nature of difference and belonging and the edge of monstrous." This book sounds dark and atmospheric. I love that it's truly a journey story. It says we start out on the streets of London but make our way all the way to Tokyo. I'm really intrigued by this very mysterious synopsis, and I'm also hoping it's rather character focused. I love historical fantasy. I particularly am interested in the time period this is set in. I've heard fantastic things. I'm hoping this just gives me all of the dark, magical, and mysterious vibes. Next up, I have 2 literary fiction options that I'm most excited to read during this season. The first is Hamlet by Maggie O'Farrell. There's something about Shakespeare that makes me think of fall. I'm not sure why. Maybe it's like the back to school season, but needless to say, this book was very much calling out to me. Set in England in 1580, during the time when the Black Death is creeping across the land, a young, penniless Latin tutor falls in love with a beautiful and eccentric woman named Agnes. They marry, they move together into a home, and Agnes becomes a central and protective figure of her new family. As her husband's career on the London stage is just beginning to take off, their young son succumbs to a fever. This is the story of Hamlet. I've honestly heard such fantastic things about this story, from the writing to the characters, and I also just really love reading stories about the humanization or just the fleshing out of famous historical figures or historical moments from well into the past. I think it's just always an interesting topic, so I'm really hoping I love Hamlet. The next literary fiction I'm really looking forward to picking up is Matrix by Lauren Groff. I've been wanting to read a novel by Lauren Groff for years, but this synopsis and historical setting particularly calls out to me. I feel like it's a great place to start. This is actually set in an abbey in like the 1500s. We follow our main character Marie, who has been expelled from the royal court due to politics and the fact that she's sort of an unusual female character. She's tall, she's strong, she's outspoken. Settling into this abbey takes time, but Marie slowly begins to make connections with her new sisters. This is said to be a bold vision of female love, devotion, and desire from one of the most adventurous writers of work today. I'm very curious to see where this book takes us. I feel like it's going to be a very intimate character study. And again, I just love the setting of the abbey itself. Next up, I have some horror options for myself for this season. I would definitely say these lean on the lighter end of horror because I am a chicken, but I do love the atmosphere of spooky books, so I just can't help myself. The first book is Between Two Fires by Christopher Bowman. This book has graced many TBRs this year. I'm so excited to read it, but for some reason I just have failed to pick it up over and over again. But the fall season, it is definitely happening. This is another book set in the 1500s during the Black Death, but this time in the French countryside. We follow a collection of unusual characters brought together to go on a quest to try to save the world. The first character is a brutal knight offered one last chance at salvation. The next is a troubled priest, the last survivor of his parish and who is currently drowning his sorrows in wine. Lastly, a young girl orphaned by the Black Death who is currently obeying the commands of angels both terrible and beautiful. And again, these characters have to set out in a country ravished by the Black Death to try to save the world. The concept of this just sounds so unique and intriguing. Again, I love a historical setting. I love the atmosphere of this, and it honestly just sounds so bizarre. I'm curious to see how the whole thing is going to come together. I already know I love Christopher Bowman's writing, and I really feel like I'm going to love this. Next book I have also been saving for the fall season because it feels perfect, and that is Hacienda. And this is said to be Mexican Gothic meets Rebecca, and this supernatural suspense novel set in the aftermath of the Mexican Revolution. And in this story, we follow our main character Beatrice, whose father was executed during the revolution, and she lost everything, including her home. So when a handsome man proposes marriage to her, she decides to kind of ignore all the creepy rumors that sort of surround him and seize the opportunity for not only a new life, but a sense of security, as well as a home that she can call her own once again. But her new home is not the sanctuary she imagined, and when her new husband travels back to the capital for work, she is left there alone, and voices and visions begin to invade our main character's sleep. Everyone around her tries to convince her that she's imagining things, but she sees the cook do strange things. Husband's own sister won't enter the home at night. Desperate for help, Beatrice begins to cling to a young priest as her only ally, and they work together in hopes of trying to do away with the presence that seems to be living inside the home itself. This sounds creepy. I love the Gothic references, the historical setting, and everything about it just seems right up my alley. I'm hoping it's full of atmosphere, perhaps a bit of romance, but we shall see. Next up is a new release from one of my favorite authors that honestly I would read at any time of year, but I'm excited I'm able to save it for the fall, and that is The Daughter of Dr Moreau by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I love this author's books, and all of her books work so well for the fall season. So many of them just have this vibe that creates not only a fantastic reading experience, but just a fantastic atmosphere that matches a creepy setting, if you know what I mean. This is said to be a dazzling historical fiction novel and a daring science fiction journey. And this is a reimagining of the island of Dr. Moreau set in the backdrop of 19th century Mexico. It seems we follow three main characters. The first is Caroletta Moreau, who is the daughter of Dr. Moreau, growing up on this remote and luxurious estate far from the conflict of the Yucatan Peninsula. We have Montgomery Langton, who is a melancholy overseer of the island. Then we also have the hybrids themselves, the fruits of all of Dr. Moreau's research and experimentation. Everything is kind of disrupted when one of the sons of Dr. Moreau's patrons arrive on the island, and he unwittingly sends off a chain of events that disrupts everything around them. For Moreau Moreau keeps secrets, Carletta has questions. In the sweltering heat of the jungle, passions may ignite. I love Silvia Moreno Garcia's writing. In my opinion, she truly can do no wrong. Her writing style, her characters, her settings, and also her sort of magical influence just always works so perfectly for me. I can't wait to pick this book up. I have a feeling I'm going to love it. Next up, I wanted to have a sort of thriller option for the season as well, so I grabbed off my shelf The Kingdoms by Natasha Pulley. This is a genre-bending, time-twisting, like historical thriller, which is a combination of many things, but that particular combination is always one of my favorites. I love shifting through time and space and almost the setting being part of the larger mystery. Looking over the synopsis, it's very vague and very unusual, but also the main reason I picked this book up to begin with. And in the story, we follow our main character Joe, and he is a bad case of amnesia. His first memory is that of stepping off of a train into the 19th century French colony of England. His only clue of who he is and where he came from is a mysterious postcard with a lighthouse on the front that is written in illegal English and also just has the signature of M. Using this postcard, we follow our main character Joe as he tries to unpack his life, how he got to this place. And apparently in this process, Joe will not only remake himself, but also history. It just sounds so intriguing, bizarre, and quite the ride. I love alternative histories. It seems weird and unusual, and I'm hoping it'll also be a page turner. Next up, I have a few books in series I'm hoping to catch up on or finally finish this year. The first is The Bone Shard Emperor by Andrea Stewart. I cannot believe I've not gotten to this book yet. This year, last year, this is one of my most anticipated releases of the year. I read The Bone Shard Daughter when that came out now 2 years ago and really enjoyed it. I've heard such good things about book 2 in this world and how it really expands the world and the magic, which was what I was hoping for. Nonetheless, I feel like it's finally a good time to pick this book up. I'm hoping to love it and fly through it. If you're not familiar, the first book is called The Bone Shard Daughter, and it's set in a world where all of the land is controlled by a ruthless ruler called the Bone Shard Emperor. He's able to maintain his power because he uses bone shard magic, which allows him to not only control the populace at large, but also animate like puppets that he's able to control, and they can do a variety of tasks from spying to administrative things to even really complex things like run the economy. This series is multi-POV, and we're following a variety of characters kind of all over the board, from a smuggler to people involved in revolution, as well as the Bone Shard Emperor's daughter herself, and she begins to get wrapped up in anti-political movements and tries to investigate more not only into her father's politics, but his magic. Things begin to get really complicated in book 1, and I'm sure they're going to continue to get even more complicated in book 2, but the magic was honestly fascinating, dark, and gruesome, and I'm excited to see where this world is going to continue to expand, which is why I need to get to book 2, and I'm sad I haven't already, but I feel like it'll be a perfect fall read. Speaking of books I really need to get to, I also have Muse of Nightmares by Laini Taylor. This book has been eluding me for like 6 years at this point. I have reread Strange the Dreamer relatively recently, loved it oh so much, and really meant to finally get to Muse of Nightmares again. But once again, I've allowed a significant amount of time to pass between reading book 1 and starting book 2 and finally finishing this fantastic YA fantasy duology. The thing is, I loved the first book so much, I don't know why I'm constantly putting the second book off, because I'm pretty sure I'm gonna love it even more. This is by far one of the best YA fantasy series I've read in recent years. It's so emotional, it'll break your heart. It's also beautifully written, like the lyrical nature of Laini Taylor's writing just absolutely shines, and the concept is also fantastic. This is a dual POV fantasy story with one of our main characters being Laszlo. In book 1, Laszlo is just a lowly librarian working inside of a large library, helping scholars with their research. And his free time though, Laszlo has an obsession, and that is the city of Weep, which is a long lost city that has completely disappeared from the pages of history books, from word of mouth, and no one has seen or visited this city in many years. Laszlo though is obsessed with this place, and he has become kind of the lone scholar and the lone expert on the city of Weep. So when an envoy actually arrives from the city of Weep trying to find experts in a variety of fields to help with their problems, Laszlo joins them and travels to this legendary place. Again, this book is about so much, and it's incredibly painful to read, but but it's so, so beautiful. And it also has another point of view. That is a long ramble to say I need to pick up book 2. I need to finish this duology. I feel like it's going to destroy me, but I feel like I'm finally ready for it. This book is for sure on my fall TBR. Next up, I have another gothic fantasy story I have been saving since last year, and that is The Death of Jane Lawrence by Caitlin Starling. I love a gothic horror story. It is definitely a sweet spot within the horror genre that I can never get enough of. Just the vibes, the dresses, the mystery. I'm a fan. I'm just a fan for life. And this follows our main character, Jane, and she is practical and unassuming, and she has done the calculations, and she feels like the best path forward for her in life is to partake in a marriage of convenience. This would allow her to have the safety of a marriage, but also would ensure that she can continue to pursue her own interests without being bothered by a man, generally speaking. She finds what she feels like is her perfect match in a very successful surgeon named Augustine, and he agrees to her stipulations with one specific condition, which is she must never visit his crumbling family manor in the countryside. She quickly and easily agrees. She won't go there, no big deal. But of course, on their wedding night, an unexpected accident leaves Jane stranded in the countryside and on the doorstep on this very manor. When she knocks on the door, she finds her now husband completely changed. On is the sure and confident Augustine, and instead stands a paranoid man cowering from her, assuming that she herself is actually a ghost or an apparition appearing in the night to haunt him. By morning, he is back to normal, but now Jane is very unsure about this marriage and about the mystery of the house itself. Again, a gothic horror story set in some sort of mysterious manner in the countryside. I love this setting clearly. Basically, Jane Eyre changed me for the rest of my life, and I'm constantly seeking out stories that give me some type of similar vibe. I can't help it. This is who I am. I feel like I'm going to love this. The last book that is on my fall TBR is Child of the Prophecy by Juliette Marillier. This is the third and final book to the Seven Waters trilogy, which I have been slowly making my way through over the course of the summer, and I want to wrap it up this fall early on. I've absolutely fallen in love with Juliette Marillier's writing style, her characters, her settings, just the centering of nature in all of her stories is truly immaculate, and they truly give cottagecore vibes. And in my opinion, the cottagecore experience has multiple seasons, so therefore I feel like I can really enjoy Juliette Marillier's writing at any point during the year, and I have actually quite the backlog of books I need to get to and want to continue to read. And in the third and final book within this trilogy, we're following another character directly connected to the Seven Waters clan. Over the course of all of the novels, we follow basically a different main character set further in time, but everyone is connected through fate and magic. And structurally, each book also follows a different female main character as she has to embark on a quest to try to save herself, her family, the land itself, and basically confront and overcome an incredible amount of obstacles. I love how Juliette Marillier writes her books. I think they're absolutely gripping and beautiful. I'm excited to see this particular journey. I really can't say much because spoilers, but if you want a truly emotional time, the Seven Waters series is a perfect one to pick up, and I'm really looking forward to see how it all wraps up in the third and final installment. Alrighty guys, those are the top books I want to read this fall. Let me know down below some books you really hope to get to this fall, as I truly would love to know. This fall TBR could continue to grow very, very easily. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you soon with another one soon. Goodbye!